And of course, the next year was 2016, where it would be said that Sonic himself would be turning 25 and there could be new titles to come along. I started to watch the rest of the Sonic X episodes, just at the same time I was watching the Pokemon anime as I became more open to it. I watched some fan content here and there, and during the 25th anniversary, 2 new games have been announced, being slated to come out next year instead of this year when Sonic celebrated his anniversary. One had some Death Egg robots destroying a city, and Sonic looked angry over the sight. He dashed off to put a stop to the destruction, and when he was about to be hit by a piece of debris, the title told us that even heroes need help, where it turned out that it was classic Sonic. Yeah, so was it gonna be a sequel to Sonic Generations but darker? And the other title announced was Sonic Mania, a return to how Sonic looked during the Mega Drive era, showing a new level and all. Plus, the real experience for the Hedgehog's anniversary was that he appeared in LEGO Dimensions as part of a level pack. As much as I never played the game fully, I watched some videos displaying how Sonic plays in his LEGO self. Not to mention that it had a plethora of references, I tell you what. And as the upcoming game, being titled Project Sonic 2017, was underway, people speculated that another Sonic was going to be in the game, and that was Boom Sonic. Remember those rumors? Of course, the year 2017 came and I was a little into Sonic as Pokemon took over as my main interest. I still did some art and watched fan videos on YouTube. It was then in March that the name of the upcoming game was called Sonic Forces, as it's got Sonic stopping Eggman from taking over the world. Really awesome concept there. More news came, showing that Green Hill is gonna appear, and come June, where it's shown that Shadow, Metal Sonic and Zavok are gonna appear, alongside the return of Chaos, whom we had not seen since Sonic Battle on the GBA. It even introduced a new threatening villain by the name of Infinite, having a hardcore sounding theme and a design looking like he's the edgiest since Mephiles. Just as Mania came out, there was an ending showing classic Sonic being teleported to a location and doing the same pose seen in Forces' first trailer last year. This led to fans speculating to it being connected to Forces. And it was. So, just as the game came out, it came along with a DLC pack called Episode Shadow, where it has Shadow playable, and I even spoiled myself when I watched 2 cutscenes showing Shadow beating up Infinite and him kicking a clone of himself, showing that Shadow isn't a bad guy here. I got the game for Christmas as I wanted to understand what the story was about, and I thought it was alright. I felt like it was a combination of Sonic 06 and Sonic Generations, with having the dark and epic tone from 06 and the use of nostalgia from Generations. And the game even let me create my own fan character, so thanks Sonic team. I totally didn't know how the double boost mechanic worked, so it just automatically does it right when I failed to do so. However, one thing that confused me that right after classic Sonic showed up and saved Tails from Chaos, Tails said this.
You're that Sonic from another dimension, aren't you?
At first, I thought it was some translation error, as Classic was really just modern Sonic's past self and not just some other version from another dimension. Right? I watched Chari5's Everything Wrong With video, and he pointed out a few problems, like Tails being afraid of Chaos, despite that he fought him as Chaos 4 in Sonic Adventure, classic Sonic being from another dimension making no sense, some text describing how Eggman took over the world as it's very unnecessary, and Shadow beating up Infinite, which made him upset, becoming the villain all because Shadow quote-unquote called him weak. The year after that was 2018, and I watched a review of MeltingMan234 expressing his opinions on Sonic Forces. If you don't know who he is, he's best known for creating his series called Forgotten Media, where he talks about some stuff that was lost to time and is currently working on his series, Archie Sonic Character Files, doing some histories on the characters seen in the Archie Sonic comics. In his review, he felt that the game felt a bit lackluster, as it failed on the dark tone, how Sonic was said to be tortured, even though later in the game he's shown to be fine, and that Infinite was a poor attempt at a villain as his motives didn't make sense. Somehow, most of his and Chowrai 5's points were nearly the same, as they said that Forces had a lot of problems, just in the story and logic. And of course, Melting Man's video has been long gone deleted as he doesn't want to review any more Sonic games. There were also the IDW Sonic comic books that took place after that game, and I read a few of the first issues and I thought they were decent. And the new character Tangle was there. Still, after hearing the mixed reception of Sonic Forces, a trailer for an expansion of Sonic Mania came out and it showed Mighty and Ray returning as playable characters. I was like, oh cool, these two. Mighty hasn't appeared in a game since Knuckles Chaotix, while Ray hasn't since the game he first appeared in. At the same time, there were these cartoons on YouTube that were made to promote the game and I kind of liked them. Showing the charm of the characters and having some funny facial expressions there. It wouldn't be until June of that year when user Jay's Reviews uploaded a video titled Why the Modern Sonic Stories Just Don't Work. In the video, he explained how the stories in the Sonic series had a very inconsistent tone throughout the years, especially in the modern times. He first said that Sonic Colors, being a light-hearted game, had some of the jokes fall flat as the characters stand around saying some really childish puns, or lack thereof. Sonic Generations, while a good game, barely has a story as Sonic and Tails stand around while they do some boring exposition, while also poking fun at how stupid most of Sonic's friends are. Forces was worse as the dark tone didn't convey as much and that Infinite was a lame, one-dimensional villain and he had an anticlimactic defeat, never being seen or heard in the rest of the game. But the game that had the worst story in his opinion was Sonic Lost World. He explained that the jokes were extremely childish and corny, that some of the dialogue took itself way too seriously, poor attempts at drama, and that the tone was all over the place. One of his points is that fans complained that there was too much nostalgia pandering that decade, as classic imagery like Green Hill and Badniks constantly showed up, as it all first started back in Sonic 4 in 2010. Which was what Melting Man said in his Give Me Chaos Theories video as well. But despite those games, Jay said that there were Sonic games that had good storytelling prior to the 2010s, such as the Adventure Duology and Heroes, seeing as how this was how Sonic games should be written. A few months passed by while there was news of a Sonic movie being filmed underway. For Christmas, I had Sonic Mania Plus, as this was my second Sonic game in a row that I got for the holiday. I really liked this game, as it's a throwback to the games of a Mega Drive era. I don't know what my favourite level and character to play were, but I'll say it's Hydrocity Zone and Knuckles. Since Hydrocity has these tubes you can go up and down and all around and you can even run on water, and Knuckles is because he can glide through any part he can get to. On that note, I received a bad ending where the game told me that I didn't collect the 7 Chaos Emeralds. So, I replayed the whole game to look for them in certain levels, and I had a bit of help from a few video game hint websites. And that the same happened in Encore mode. So, when I collected all the Chaos Emeralds, it had a true final boss where I fought both Eggman and the Heavy King in his new form, the Phantom King, having a much exciting final boss than what Forces had. So, after finishing the game, there was a new Sonic racing game on the way called Team Sonic Racing, where it had only the Sonic characters and that the Sega characters have been excluded. Also, there was the first trailer for the movie that had been dropped and... oof. Fans did not take it very well. A few months later, while I was checking out some fan content and I had TSR for my 19th birthday, I thought that the game was okay to say the least. It unfortunately didn't show a big cast of Sonic characters such as Cream, Espio, Charmy and probably Infinite, but at least the music was very good to listen to. The story itself had... I don't know how to describe it. It has something to do with the Donpa working with Eggman, and the cutscenes have a very low budget as we don't see what's happening other than renders of the characters, and for something like a spin-off for a Sonic game, seems like Sonic Team just doesn't have a storyboard artist anymore. A few months have passed by as the second trailer for the Sonic movie came out, having a better design of the blue hedgehog, and people were happy, and for Christmas I was given a Nintendo Switch for the first time, as it's probably a successor to the Wii I had back then. The games I had were Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games Tokyo 2020. This game was the first since the London 2012 Olympics that I played a game from the Mario and Sonic series, as I never had the previous two titles as they were on the Wii U, which I never had. But anyway, this game had Mario and Sonic like usual, partaking in the events of Tokyo 2020. Of course, like in the 2008 and 2012 Olympics, there's the 100-meter race, swimming, gymnastics, table tennis, and fencing. It's a shame there are only 3 dream events in the game. What happened to the flavor and pizzazz seen in previous games? I swear that 3 of the 4 games prior had variety when bringing in levels from both franchises, showing some love for the fans. Here, we have one for Mario, one for Sonic, and one that takes place in some Japanese manner. Dream Racing has Metropolis from Sonic Forces, Dream Karate has the Mushroom Kingdom, and one isn't even themed after Mario or Sonic as it's in some Japanese building, cause it's related to the Tokyo Olympics. It's such a letdown as there could have been potential for more Dream events in the game, like, oh I don't know, Dream Canoe where it takes place in Jungle Joyride from Unleashed. But aside from that, there's a story mode where it's got Mario, Sonic, Bowser, Eggman and Toad getting sucked in some video game device and they find themselves in the 1964 Tokyo Olympics and that Luigi and Tails have to get them out. But by doing that, they must compete in some Olympic events to get stuff to their friends in exchange for the 5 to let them out of a game device. My sister pointed out that the story was very repetitive as it had Luigi and Tails asking for their friends for help, but they have to bring in some items before they can help them or whatever. But all in all, I felt that this game was a bookend to the Mario and Sonic games I've played in the 2010s and for Olympic Winter Games 10 years ago, as I had that game for Christmas too, at the end of the year of the last decade nonetheless. So came the 2020s, and it was pretty rocky for me to say the least. I watched the Sonic movie with my brother as I pretty much liked it for the action, while my brother liked it for Ben Schwartz and Jim Carrey's performances. I then looked into some videos from the fanbase on YouTube, and specifically one that was recommended to me. Enter Characters in Depth. In his videos, he explained that most of the characters have been butchered in the 2010s. For example, he said that Shadow went from a lone wolf with a tragic and mysterious past to a straight-up one-note edgelord who taunts at Sonic, saying he's the ultimate life form. Knuckles went from a gullible yet serious hot-headed echidna who's the last of his kind to becoming a doofus who's nothing more than a comic relief. Tails went from an independent kid who learned to stand up to himself to whatever game he was butchered in. Sonic became an annoying jokester, Eggman became a bumbling fat idiot who's a poor excuse of a comedic villain, Amy became clingy towards Sonic. All of these criticisms made me see how the Sonic characters have been poorly portrayed the last decade, as the writers, Ken Pontac and Warren Graff, did not understand who they were and that most of the jokes in the 2010s weren't that funny. Of course, the year 2020 saw a drought of no announcements of Sonic games coming out, but all that's left for me were the IDW comics, especially during the Metal Virus saga. Plus, for my 20th birthday, I had the Sonic movie DVD for my sister and mum to watch, and they liked it. My sister loved how Robotnik was portrayed, judging from how Jim Carrey played the character. And a lot of months later and the year 2021 came, where it was the 30th anniversary. So, I did the craziest thing possible. Play all of the mainline games up to Lost World, as I've already played Forces and Mania Plus back in 2017 and 18. I've played the Mega Drive and GBA titles from emulation websites and games such as the Adventure Duology, 4 Episodes 1 and 2, Generations and Lost World on Steam. As at that time, my PC was 8 years old, but it could still manage the app. The only emulated game I finished was CD, and that I couldn't beat 4 Episode 2, as I couldn't figure out a way to defeat the final boss. Unfortunately, as I didn't own these games, I had to watch playthroughs of games like Heroes, Rush, 06, Rush Adventure, Unleashed, and Colors. Then, there was the Sonic Central, where it announced 3 new games. One trailer had Sonic running in a forest, the other was Sonic Origins, a compilation game, and lastly was Sonic Colors Ultimate, which I wasn't bothered to buy. And thank God I didn't. So, after Sonic having a very good anniversary, last year was 2022, where it had a lot of things. The first was that I watched the Sonic movie sequel and I really liked it, especially on how the characters were portrayed. Their Sonic Frontiers, where at first the marketing was just, you get the idea. And third was Sonic Prime, where it had Sonic traveling through dimensions and encountering his friends, each looking different from their universal counterparts, and Shadow was there too, having a mixed characterization of his Sonic X and 2010's counterparts, as that's what I felt. Okay, just as I'm editing this video, there was the trailer for the second season of Prime that just dropped, and it showed Sonic and Shadow teaming up, so it seems like this show could be fixing his character. And to wrap up the year, I got Sonic Frontiers for Christmas. And just when the game came out, I avoided spoilers as I waited for Christmas to come, as my mum felt it was expensive for that matter. Anyway, my opinions of the game. Do I like it? Well, for starters, I do like how the soundtrack heard in the Starfall Islands is setting the mood for the game, as it somehow got a somber tone this time. Then there are scenes where Sonic talks to his friends, as he rarely had conversations with them last decade, except for Tails 80% of the time. But for all of those good things, there are a few things that felt underwhelming. One is the cutscene where Sonic gets succumbed to the cyber corruption until he is frozen. His friends look in horror of what the blue hedgehog is in the state of. This could lead to having Tails, Knuckles and Amy being playable for the first time in a mainline game since 06, as they did something important in the last story. But, just as the three hold hands together in front of Sonic, they disappear. What was the point of that scene anyway? I felt like it was the whole "you can do it Sonic" shtick from Generations, or Tails being turned into a robot from Lost World all over again. Something that was just hyped up became suddenly undermined, as even in the last story of Sonic 06, Sonic himself was out of action and that his friends did what they could to bring him back. Imagine that, but if they've already got the Chaos Emeralds and Elise did the thing, then it would be wasted potential. And also the end. Is this the most darkest villain Sonic Team could ever think of? I swear that they're making him the next Black Doom or Mephiles, and look at Infinite. Even he failed as a threatening villain. The end is not that active in the story. Sure, its voice is heard throughout the game, speaking to Sonic, but when we see its true form at the climax, it's a flipping moon. And I was playing the game on easy mode, and I heard from people that the final boss can be only fought in hard mode, where it's this top-down shooter in the vein of something like Ikaruga, and saying that it's the most weakest final boss in Sonic history. So, while I have my gripes with this game, I learned that Tails, Knuckles, and Amy will be playable as parts of future DLC, so that's a good thing, I guess. And also, I hope that this is the last time we see Green Hill. And this is my entire retrospective on how I became a Sonic fan. From my childhood to now, of what I experienced from the shows, games, and even some of the fan-made stuff on the internet. I know that this could be my longest video on my channel yet, but it's likely that it's a record breaker on what I've produced on my channel so far. I learned that the franchise has a few duds and that most of the things would be taken a step further in the 2020s, as the blue blur would become a respected icon, not just in gaming, but in multimedia franchises. There were some Sonic games that I liked and some that I didn't finish or care about. But anyway, Sonic himself has been running around for 32 years, and let's hope for more great content for the fastest thing alive. So, as we end off this video, let's end with a quote from Sonic.
Merlina, every world has its end. I know that's kinda sad, but that's why we gotta live life to the fullest in the time we have. At least, that's what I figure.
See ya!